let's say the Lakers and OKC play conference finals. Give me the reasons you think the Lakers could win that series. And then on the flip side, I want to ask you, what are the things that the Thunder do well that you think could be challenging for the Lakers? But let's start with, give me the reasons the Lakers could beat OKC if they faced off against them in the conference finals. By the way, OKC, largest point differential in the history of the sport to this point in the season. They are legitimately a very good team and only an average age of 24.8 years old.
Well, first of all, we have very little, actually to no evidence from this season about this matchup. Okay, so like the Lakers,
right? They're going to play a bunch of games late in the year.
Well, they play back-to-back in OKC in April,
right?
But OKC will have long locked up the number 1 seed,
right? So maybe you're not going to get.
We don't know. We don't know if they'll play anybody, and that could, by the way, that could benefit the Lakers if they're trying to get somewhere between the second, third, fourth spot or whatever.
Right.
But so in that game, Chet was hurt, right? But like the rest of their lineup was all there. So it was Shea and Hartenstein and Williams and Dort and Wallace started. For the Lakers, it was AD, LeBron, Rui, Austin Reeves, and then Dalton was actually starting at the time. And it was a pretty close game. OKC ended up pulling away late, and they win 101-93. Now, the Lakers are obviously a completely different team. And then OKC adds Chet, and they add Caruso, who didn't play in that game. And like the way that I see the matchup, OKC is built to be an absolute ridiculous regular season machine because they are super deep. All 12 guys that either they play or can play are good defensive players for the most part. Shea is an absolute number 1 scoring engine that he can get his own shot, and if you bring help, he can kick it to somebody else. So like they're built to be almost bulletproof in winning regular season games. That's why the point differential is that high too, because when they bring in their second or third unit, those guys are going too. Right. That's usually the difference in point differential. So what I look at more closely is like how do their starters compare to other starters, and it's still really good, but it's not quite as all time, as we're going to say with what OKC's record is overall. Here's the reason why I think the Lakers though have a very interesting matchup, and probably are the team that OKC would least wants to see. OKC gets after teams with ball pressure. They are fiendish after the basketball, and there are 2 players in the NBA that are basically impervious to ball pressure: LeBron James and Luka Doncic.
Right.
So you can do that all you want. You want to ball pressure Luka or LeBron? They'll just back you up with their butt, push you down into the paint, or they will force you to bring a double team and then get the other team in rotation. So like I just that's the place you start, George. LeBron and Luka are 2 guys that I think know how to play against that kind of aggressive blitzing, show and recover type of scheme that OKC has. Then on the other end, I think the encouraging part with what we've seen, maybe I'll give you the Nuggets game as the best example. What did the Lakers do against Nikola Jokic? The kind of attention that they paid to him, sending the quick doubles, fronting, recovering.
I mean, there were 3 guys surrounding him at all times.
So I think you do that same thing to Shea, even though it's a little harder because
he's more slithery.
Because you have to do it
and extend it way further.
But you can get the ball out of his hands, and then who is initiating the offense that's going to really scare you over the course of a playoff series? Is J-Dub ready for that? Is Chet Holmgren ready for that?
I mean, last year he was not ready. Against Dallas.
And that was kind of the thing. So, like, that's where OKC, as amazing as they've been in the regular season, they have to show that level of, like, okay, if a team really zeroes in that much more on Shea. So I just think that they don't have the rim protection, of course, and that's where you worry some. And if you're blitzing and recovering and switching as much as the Lakers
if they do break that press, then all of a sudden,
But that's I think why you like what JJ Redick is installing here and being able to switch. And if you've got LeBron, Luka, Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura, and whether it's Austin or you bring in a Vanderbilt, then you can switch everything. And you're making them basically beat you over the top.
Right.
And they don't have great personnel to beat you over the top.
Although since January 1st, they are the best 3-point shooting team in the league.
Yes, this is where again I kind of go between like regular season and a postseason.
I got you. Different set of situations.
The guys that are taking those shots are Lou Dort, who's he's increased his percentage, but he's not a laser, right? No. Chet Holmgren, who just doesn't want to take a high volume of.
By the way, does everyone know that the JJ calls your 5-man lineup the laser lineup? Does everyone know that? Is that like a public thing? Or did I just make that public?
Well, JJ in general.
Well, I mean, we used it on the broadcast because that's what he called it. So I didn't know how.
No, but JJ calls all of the best shooters he calls lasers, and all of the worst shooters.
Right, but he calls
ducks.
that lineup with Rui and And
Rui, Finney-Smith,
right.
LeBron, Reeves.
The
and
laser
Luka.
lineup.
Yeah, because they're 5 lasers essentially.
Yeah.
What does he call the guys who can't shoot?
Ducks.
Ducks. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and look, here's the one thing I will give. Another thing I will give JJ a lot of credit for. You guys have done a great job of protecting the paint recently. Okay, basically since you've been this stretch since January 15th or whatever, and there is this misnomer that the Lakers have gotten lucky because they've given up the 4th most threes in that same span. That shots aren't falling. But what I would say is, if you watch the games, and this is why I tell people, yes, the numbers matter, but you have to watch the games too. Like, they have to go hand in hand.
Or just listen to me and George because we're watching the games, and then we'll tell you.
Look at the guys that are taking the shots. It's rarely the lasers. It's more the Ducks.
So there's a prominent...
Against the Lakers. So when they're giving up all these shots, they're not giving up corner threes to Steph Curry.
So George is exactly right, and there's a prominent ESPN podcast, and so I won't say the name because we don't want friendly fire here, but somebody
I'll say it, the Hoop Collective.
Okay, so it was Bontemps. Make it.
Yeah.
The point he was trying to make was, it's shooting luck, and the Lakers they're getting lucky because they're letting everybody shoot threes. And it's like, no, they are letting the Ducks shoot threes.
Right.
And they are getting the ball out of the hands of the actual best shooters. So in an example of OKC, right, what would that be? Now, OKC doesn't necessarily have a quote-unquote laser in the starting lineup.
They all shoot pretty well.
But they all shoot pretty. But like if Isaiah Joe is in the game, okay,
right.
he's their best shooter off the bench.
Yeah.
He is not. You're not letting Isaiah Joe take a bunch of threes.
Right.
But if the ball gets swung over to Dort or Cason Wallace, right,
you'll take your chances.
Then it's like, and you're not letting him shoot. You're
and by the way,
out late.
if they beat you, you tip your cap to them.
Yeah, you're closing out late, but you're basically playing the percentage game. And this is like, but this is why it works. Because they have the athleticism and the toughness and the discipline defensively now to execute this. Like early in the season, George, D'Angelo Russell and Dalton Knecht were in the primary rotation, and they were trying to basically play a scheme like that is very difficult.
You know who's shooting a pretty good amount of threes, too, as well? Like, much more volume than he had previous years. Is Aaron Wiggins, and he's shooting the ball pretty well. He's like nearly 40%.
Yeah, Wiggins is a good player. I like him.
Yeah.
He's part of what I mentioned why they have a net rating of plus 13.
Right.
Because they bring in like Wiggins and Joe.
And Joe. Those guys can play well. Yeah.
They can all hoop, right?
Yeah.
And then Caruso, like they've got a lot of good players.
Right.
But like that's kind of the idea is that when you're scheming, and this is also why, by the way, it's tough to play against a team like Boston.
Right.
Because there are not a lot of guys out there that you can leave to sort of let
they
shoot
all
that
can
shot.
shoot the ball.
But Boston doesn't give you the same problems of getting to the rim,
right? So
then you don't have to play that same kind of scheme,
right?
So like, and I think the ultimate point I would make, George, like JJ Redick knows all this stuff.
Yeah,
he's making the right decisions. He's using the right players.
Yeah.
And now that Rob Pelinka made a couple of great trades, like so, I think everybody gets the Luka trade. Like we all get that was a great trade,
right? But the Finney-Smith trade at the time, you and I talked about it, and I said this is going to be awesome. He fits perfectly with what they want to do.
And so like D'Angelo Russell was actually, as George knows, I've said this all the time, he was better than people thought for the Lakers, but not as good of a fit as Finney-Smith.
Right.
And Finney-Smith enables your roster to be bigger, stronger, tougher. And then you get Vanderbilt back.
Right.
And then Gabe Vincent actually gets some games under him.
Listen, Gabe has played really good. What he did to Kawhi, so he's
a good player.
He had
just was
three
hurt
really impactful plays in this last game where, like, his defense on drives was fantastic. He made Kawhi travel on the perimeter. Like, he did a really good. Like, Kawhi's got him by what, 35 pounds and probably at least 4 inches.
Yeah, like 4
you know what I
inches,
mean?
yeah.
Like he did a really good job on Kawhi.
And he